Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And to begin with, I was in the Sultanate of Oman. This is a country in the Middle East that borders the United Arab Emirates and Yemen and Saudi Arabia. I was teaching English there in 2019. At the end of my time in Oman, I was leaving the country, and the company I worked for was going to give me my severance package. I told them I was not leaving the country until I received my money. They said, "We will deposit the money into your bank account." On day one, I walked down this street to leave the hotel en route to the ATM to check my bank account. I checked my bank account on day one. My money was not there. On day two, I walked down this street to check my bank account at the ATM, and my money was not there. On day three, I took this photo. As I was walking down this street, I saw this taxi with the license plate 1090. When I saw this taxi, I said to myself, this is a sign. My money is in my account. And sure enough, when I arrived to the ATM, my money had been deposited into my account. When I returned to the hotel, I walked down this street again. This taxi was gone. But I had my money and I was ready to leave the country. This photo shows a truck, again in Oman, the Sultanate of Oman. One day I was driving to work, and the distance between my job and my home was a very short distance, maybe a 5 to 8 minute drive. On this morning when this photo was taken, I was driving to work, and there were very few cars on the road. My car and this truck in particular are basically what you can see in the photo, because that's basically all that was on the road. I believe there is another car coming, but a few moments before this photo was taken, the only two cars on the road were mine and that truck's. What are the odds? That truck's license plate read 1090. This memory stuck with me because when I saw this truck, I was saddened because I had recently learned of the news of Nipsey Hussle's passing. And I was saddened, but I was also angry because this truck had cut me off. And I thought, how bizarre that a truck, one of the only vehicles on the road, mine and this truck, would cut the other vehicle off. And so in that moment I was sad, and then I was angry. But when I saw that the license plate read 1090, all of my sadness and all of my anger was washed away, because I thought, hey, those are those familiar numbers for me again. This is a photo I took in Bahrain. Bahrain is another Middle Eastern country, not far from Oman. And on weekends, I would travel to Bahrain from Saudi Arabia, where I worked as an English teacher. And I would spend the weekends in Bahrain. And I found a nice motel, cheap motel to stay in. And on this particular day, when this photo was taken, I had purchased a room at a motel. And I walked into the room, and I saw that this number was on this looks like a satellite box for the television. It could be a satellite signal. I don't think it's a television channel. The TV was not on when I entered the room, but this number was clearly visible on the television, atop the television. And so I definitely took a photo of it, and I wondered to myself what significance these numbers held. Why were these numbers there? And why had I chosen this particular motel room? This was completely random. Completely random. In the next photo, this is a photo of the cover of the book, The Motorcycle Diaries by Ernesto Che Guevara de la Serna, the Cuban revolutionary, Argentinian-born leader of the Cuban Revolution, I should say. I was reading this book in Cuba, in Havana, Cuba, in 2017 when I visited Cuba. And within the first few pages of reading, I learned that Che Guevara died, or rather, he was killed on October 9th, 1967. So October 9th to me is 10-9. So those are those numbers again. And it's interesting that I learned this little tidbit while I was in Cuba about Che Guevara, because in Cuba, that's where Che Guevara's remains lie to this day. It hadn't always been that way. He was killed in Bolivia, and his remains stayed in Bolivia for 20 years. 30 years. He died in 1967, and in 1997, his remains were exhumed and repatriated to Cuba. And so I thought it was wildly peculiar for me to make a connection between 10-9 and Che Guevara, this leader of this country, whose remains were now in the country where I was visiting. The next picture is one I took atop Machu Picchu in Peru. I took this photo at 10:09 a.m. Atop Machu Picchu, I did what any other traveler would do. I looked around, I snapped photos, selfies in particular, and I just enjoyed the views. And I wondered, what else should I do? Should I stay atop the mountain and meditate or something? Well, I looked at my watch on my cell phone, my cell phone clock rather, and I noticed that the time was 10:08. And I thought, wow, that's peculiar. 10:08 is, is 1 minute from 10:09, and those are my numbers, 10 and 9. So I made up my mind to go down the mountain to make my descent at 10:09, because those are my familiar numbers. And then I thought about it, and I said, well, it's quite peculiar that that particular hour struck while I was atop the mountain. I said to myself, I imagine that those were the spirits of the Inca spirits talking to me atop Machu Picchu. And so I made my way down the mountain. This photo was taken in Dublin, Ireland. I had just finished a meal. I ate a hamburger, and I had my very first Guinness beer in Dublin, Ireland. And when I received my bill, I looked at my tab, and my tab number was 109. Tab number 109. Hey y'all, 10-9 is still king, and 10-9 isn't just an allusion to my birthday, October 9th. No, there's a bigger picture, and that's what we have to focus on. Romans 10:9, y'all. That's what it is. It says, if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. There it is, y'all. Romans 10:9, chapter 10, verse 9. There's a bigger picture there, y'all. Bigger picture. Doesn't matter if you're Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Zoroastrian. As long as there's love in your heart for Jesus, you're on the right path. This next video here was taken during my trip to Sweden, where I was on a tour, and during the tour, I saw the numbers 1, 0, and 9 in a display case about 8 feet away from me. And while the tour guide was speaking, I interrupted her to ask if she could read the numbers to me because I really didn't want to, I wanted evidence that I wasn't seeing anything or seeing things. And the other thing is, the numbers were written, I could have mistaken those numbers, or I could have mistaken what was written for those familiar numbers. And so I wanted someone else to clarify it for me. So I asked her to read those numbers to me, and she did. And sure enough, those numbers were 1, 0, and 9. And I thought, how peculiar that of all numbers, those 3 digits are right there in that display case behind that glass. And here I am in Sweden visiting this museum on this day. What a wild coincidence, I thought.
And in 50 years' time, we will know because they released the material. Yeah.
In the last display over here,
Yeah.
I can't see it, but is that a number? Could you read that number to me, please?
The 1934 and 109.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the number of the nominee. So they put a number. So that's nominee number 109. That's an interesting nomination letter, by the way, or it's a telegram, which was quite usual back in the days. It's a telegram nominating Carl von Ossietzky, another journalist. I think the first journalist to receive the Peace Prize. And he received the prize in 1934, it says there. He was a German journalist who very early on reported, he wrote for a newspaper called Die Weltbühne, and he reported on Germany starting to arm up, which they weren't allowed to after World War I, and Hitler and what he was doing. So he was one of the first political prisoners in the concentration camps. And when he received the Peace Prize, he was still in the concentration camps. Hitler was very angry about this Nobel Prize. He forbade all German citizens to ever to say yes to a Nobel Prize. And they did not let him out. He unfortunately died, I think, in 1938. So he wasn't able to come and receive his prize. And this is...
Here's a picture of me when I was in South Korea. The year was 2014. It was, I believe, the month of August. I was studying Korean at the Seogang University. And it's the KIP program, or Korean Immersion Program. Now, what I did is, I enrolled in the program, and I had no idea that I would be assigned to group AR 1009. So I snapped this photo. I had to make sure to snap this photo because, for one, South Korea's Korean language holiday falls on 1009 or 10/9 or October 9th. It's called Korean Language Promulgation Day, or Hangul Day. And so there were those numbers. Now I know it's not 109, it's 1009, but the thing about it is I see 10/9. Okay, I see the 10 and I see 09. So the 0 that goes before the 9, that's only a placeholder. The value of 09 is simply 9. So I see 10/9. And this is another picture taken in Korea with my group assignment number, with my name right there. The message says 수고하세요. No, it says 수고했어요. It means you did a good job or good work. You did good work. Okay. Now the next picture is of the Japanese brand. It's called Tokyo Hands. Now, while I was in Tokyo, I saw this company's advertisements, Tokyo Hands, many times, and I wondered to myself, what the heck is Tokyo? For me, it was always Tokyo. Tokyo is the name of the capital. So I thought, why are they changing the name to Tokyo? It shouldn't, or shouldn't it be Tokyo Hands? And so throughout my many trips to to Japan, I was always confused and I never understood why Tokyo was used instead of Tokyo. And then maybe about a year ago, I learned that the Japanese partake in something called goro awase, which is Japanese wordplay. And essentially, what they're doing is the word Tokyo sounds very much like Tokyo. And so they use Tokyo um, instead of Tokyo because of the similarity in sounds, okay? But why did they choose Tokyo? Excuse me, or Tokyo? Well, because Tokyo literally translates to 10-9. To means 10 and Q means 9. So Tokyo, all right, Tokyo means 10-9. So the name of this company is actually 109 hands. 109 hands. Now, the Japanese partake in this ngoro awase or Japanese wordplay, and so you'll find different names of businesses that are created by translating numbers into words, into names. For instance, my favorite udon restaurant is called Niku Niku Udon. And Niku Niku Udon means 2929 udon. So that just gives you some idea. Now, what these numbers mean in particular can vary. In the case of Tokyo, I think that 10 and 9, Tokyo, is significant only because Tokyo sounds very much like Tokyo. So they use it. So 109 is very popular in Tokyo, or in Japan rather. And to give you another example, here is the famous Shibuya 109 shopping mall in Shibuya, Tokyo. This is a teen, young girls fashion mall for teenagers, young girls in Japan. Shibuya 109. How I learned about this place is I watched a video about Japanese teenage girls who are fascinated with the quote unquote black lifestyle. So they admire hip hop artists, reggae artists, R&B singers, and they want to emulate their style, or they want to, you know, follow their trends. And so there's a particular store at Shibuya 109 that sells black lifestyle clothes, hip hop inspired, reggae inspired, R&B, soul inspired clothes. And I learned about it on YouTube, and I wanted to visit this shopping mall where I met the manager at the time, who was featured in that video. So 10-9 is popular in Japan. In this photo, in the next two photos actually, this photo here and this photo here, What you see is an intersection in Thailand, and there are two poles, two light poles, one with the number 10 on it and the other with the number 9 on it. Now, how did I take this photo? Well, one morning, or maybe one afternoon, I left my hotel and I walked to the corner of this intersection. I had no idea where I would go, and I was just sightseeing basically. But I went to this corner and I noticed as I looked in one direction, I could see the number 10. I was watching the traffic, waiting for the traffic to pass, and I noticed the pole read 10. And I said, that's peculiar. And then I turned and looked at the other direction before crossing the street, and I noticed, hey, this pole is pole number 9. So basically, in Thailand, light poles are numbered at intersections, and I just so happened to have walked directly to the corner where poles 10 and 9 are located. Now remember, I had basically just left my hotel for the first time that day, and I walked to this intersection, and I had no agenda, no plan. I was just there. And there I was, meeting 10-9 again. So I snapped a couple of photos. I even took some video of this intersection. I couldn't find the video, so all you get are these two photos. But here they are. All right, these are my encounters with 10-9 around the globe. All right, and then this next picture was taken in Ethiopia, and I was visiting Addis Ababa University. There is a museum at Addis Ababa University located where His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie once resided. So his home has been converted into a museum. The museum is located throughout his former home, or the former palace, but specifically on the second floor. So you enter the doors on the first floor, you make your way up to the second floor, and you will find the museum. I went to the museum, and at some point I needed to go to the restroom. I left the museum, I walked down a hall in order to find the restroom. And as I approached the restroom, I passed this door, which is situated to my left. I looked at the door and I noticed that the numbers 10 and 9 were written on that door. And once again, I was curious. My curiosity was piqued, and I wondered, what do those numbers mean in Ethiopia? Because I understand what 1009 means in Japan, and I wondered if there is any significance, for 109 in Ethiopia. Because why would those numbers be on that door? Why would someone have written those numbers on that door? And it wasn't me. I did not write those numbers on that door, but there I saw them. And then the other peculiar aspect of those numbers being written on this door, um, I was on the second floor. And the numbers, that door is numbered 202-203. And anytime you're on the second floor, usually your door numbers begin with the number 2. Same as if you're on the third floor, the door numbers begin with 3, and then, fourth floor, fifth floor, etc. All of the floor numbers and the door numbers correspond. So the question then for me was, well, why did someone write 109 on that door, especially when the door is located on the second floor? So I was completely perplexed, vexed by this quandary, this conundrum, because those were my numbers, those familiar numbers to me, and there they were, and I had no explanation as to why they were there. All right, these are the stories of my 10-9 encounters around the globe. I'm just sharing them with you. There's really no conclusion. There's no, there's no conclusion. There's nothing to deduce from all of these encounters. It's just, hey, look at this, check it out. Isn't this bizarre? And if you agree, then cool. That's why I shared it with you. Thanks. Have a blessed day. Peace and blessings. Kobe, let them know.
You're at 109 right now.